I'm JJ Barnes, and this is Jonathan McKinney.
Hello.
And you're watching another episode of Writing Advice with JJ and Jonathan. Today we're going to be talking about, and it's another controversial, difficult one. Great. When is it appropriate, and how do you do it, writing offensive subject matter?
Okay.
So, if you have a character who is racist, homophobic, sexist...
Sure.
Should you include the language, the offensive language and behaviour? Should that be on screen in print, or should you not put it in because it's offensive? And if you do put it in, how do you do it in a way that isn't bad for humanity?
Okay.
So I have some opening thoughts if you're interested.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we are representing bad characters, assuming the rating of your book or film or whatever allows for it, they would use the bad language. They would use the offensive words, the words that we are, as good people, programmed out of using, and with good reason, because of how offensive they are. Because we want to be good people.
Right.
And we are good people. Bad people don't. They use those words. Which means there has to be ways of doing it. If you want to have those characters represented, then you have to be able to represent them accurately. So if you've got, say, a massive racist, right? So you're writing a book like A Time to Kill.
Okay, I've seen the movie, I haven't read the book.
The book is incredible.
Okay.
Obviously, the community, there are some very, very, very racist, awful people in that community.
Right.
They are represented and they use the terrible behaviours and language, right? The way you can do it is, I would say, I feel, for instance, Tarantino goes too far with it, because I think he indulges in the language, indulges in those words for the shock factor. Okay. Personally, I don't think that is the good way of doing it. I think you use it because the bad characters use it. But A, they have to be bad characters.
Okay.
And B, they have to be called out for it. If you just have them saying those things as if it means nothing and it's fine.
Right.
Or you have the characters that you're supposed to be seeing as good using those language, but saying those words, which obviously I'm not going to use. You know what I'm talking about.
If you're talking Tarantino, then you're talking Django Unchained and...
But you've got the N-word and all sorts of words that are quite liberally thrown around. You have to have characters who behave like that if you're writing a story about that. But you have to call it out. They have to be the bad character. The POV characters have to acknowledge that that is terrible. And you can't, for me, I feel like if you spend a lot of time just using that imagery for the shock factor, it becomes something else. It's not just, I've got a racist character, so he's racist, or I've got a sexist character, so he's sexist. It starts being like, it's fun to be shocking at the expense of the people who this language hurts.
Okay.
So, whereas I think you have to, and this comes quite connected to our video about sensitivity readers.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge that if you're writing people in a group that are abused, you have to accept that A, they will probably have had this language used against them, and B, it will hurt. So make sure your characters who behave like this, acknowledge that what they are doing is wrong. Have good characters acknowledge that it is wrong, so that it is used because people speak that way if you're writing a story about that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't ever write stories about that and we shouldn't write bad characters, because of course we should. We should write horrible characters, because horrible characters make for good stories.
Yeah.
But we should do it understanding that it is at the expense of a people, whichever people, women, black people, Asian people, whatever, they will have had this language used against them, and so it's our job as storytellers to
gang up on them.
Not exactly, and to recognise that A, this happens, but B, it's wrong. And if you do it with your story where you don't indulge in the language constantly just for the shock, and you make sure the characters who do it are bad, are acknowledged as bad, and there is some consequence for the fact that at least they are spoken about and acknowledged as bad people. That is how I feel.
Okay, so I think most stories develop a sort of moral position. And they do this by, yes, if there are words, for example, in the case of this example, that are acceptable amongst the people, the main characters that you are rooting for, then it feels when you're reading it or you're watching that film like the book or film is asserting to you that those words are acceptable.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily intentional or fair, and yet it sort of happens anyway. So you have to cut for it as a writer, because
your POV character is the person in that scene your audience is in the perspective of, so you're kind of giving them your character's thoughts. So if the main character, obviously you'll have POV in the bad guy. In Mermaid's Curse, I'll be in the harvester's POV, and I'm not saying because when you're in here as his POV that it's good to chop mermaids up.
No,
that is absolutely not.
I think that's apparent by this moral position, because they are antagonising the moral position by representing...
Exactly. If you have your main character, whose POV you're mostly, your protagonist, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If your protagonist's opinion and your protagonist's behaviour and your protagonist's attitude towards this kind of thing is condemning it and fighting against it, essentially.
Yeah, the kind of good versus evil story is one where the protagonist, by definition, is good.
Yeah,
and so,
exactly.
Yeah,
I've murdered people in my books. I wouldn't ever say I'm pro-murder. I've done terrible things with characters in my books, but it's always been the bad character. It's always the bad person. We're not celebrating this behaviour. We're not celebrating it when we write it. We are acknowledging that these terrible people exist and dealing with it in the story. And that is, I really feel, is an important aspect. If you want to go down the line of abusive, offensive behaviours, your character has to be on the antagonist end.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the question about racist and sexist language is specifically what we're talking about. Right?
Yeah.
So, if you, writer friend, want to use racist and sexist language, I would say question why. Why do you feel the need to?
If it's because you want to write a story where the bad guy does that and
no, but then you are not someone who wants to use that language.
Exactly. It's because you want to tell a character.
Yeah, because if you when you learn offensive language, you choose not to use it around people who are going to be offended by it, then...
This is why I'm terrible, because my dad's offended by swearing, and I'm terrible. I swear all the time, and it offends my dad. But then I wouldn't, around people like your family.
Right, okay.
Because it's not mine. It could offend my dad.
Swearing has a catharsis attached to it.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, your language you use it according to the appropriateness of the situation.
Right. So, pardon me. So, as you're writing your story, you're probably not going to want to use any racist or sexist language anyway. If you do feel like, for the accuracy of the bad person you're representing, that they would use a racial slur or a sexist slur, then yeah, if it's the bad guy doing it and people are appalled, then I don't think there's any danger. If your good characters are doing it, that's weird.
And I think that's a really important point, as I say, and also, as I say, I know you like Tarantino, and Tarantino is very, very popular. And I know it's not because of that I know that you're not like, yeah, I love because he says this, that, and the other. Like, I know, but in terms of stories, for me, it's too far into the...
Well, Django Unchained is the one that's absolutely replete with that word, which again, from very, very young, we were sort of educated not to use under any circumstances.
Yeah, and I think being it does again come down
fact that
like
the one, like the white main character, so the guy played by Christoph Waltz, the doctor, the dentist, he uses the word a lot, just as DiCaprio and all of the kind of other bad characters do. I mean, there's a point to be made, but it's not really my point to make. But I'll listen to people who feel that Tarantino was, I don't know, obnoxious to the point of being...
obnoxious is, I suppose, the right word. I feel that there is a responsibility that comes with it. And if you don't respect that responsibility and you're doing something that you need to question, like, why am I choosing...
Do you feel like he's made the decision to get people talking about it,
maybe?
Like we are now?
I mean, literally, it could be. It could be like a...
Or he
just really likes being that...
I think that
graphically...
I think he was trying to... my understanding is that he will have believed it's accurate.
Sure. But we're not making documentaries.
No, I agree. But then at the same time, why have a world that resembles our own at all?
It's very difficult.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I imagine that he probably felt kind of like, F you, I can do anything I want, right?
Yeah.
Because he was at sort of the height of his popularity. He's taken a bit more shit now from the world after things that he had Uma Thurman do, and you know.
And Diane Kruger.
Yeah. So now, I don't know what his take is now, but his friend was horrible, and we know about him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Who knows what Tarantino was doing?
But I mean, it's not Tarantino specifically. It's a lot of people do it. But he is one that stands out to me.
So who are the others? Like, because I was watching The Irishman. Is Scorsese?
I don't know. I don't really watch a lot of Scorsese.
I don't think he is. I know that he's got... See, a lot of these kind of movies, they focus on criminals. So...
Yeah, you've got your bad... That's the thing.
Your protagonists are criminals to start with, so...
It's tricky. It's tricky. If you have any thoughts, tell us your thoughts, because we've said before, like, things like this I think are a very interesting and important conversation to be had, and there's a lot that can be said about it, and we could go real deep dive on this and the conversation would be a lot longer, but...
Yeah, I find it's the sort of one where you can be very careful to articulate what you're trying to say, because you don't want to say something that encourages anything offensive to happen in the world, and I certainly don't.
Yeah, exactly.
So my reductionist perspective is always to just bring it down to one point, which is don't be a dickhead again, right? Because that will solve a lot of your problems.
But if you have any thoughts about this, and say you've written these characters, or you want to write these characters, or you are, what are you doing? Talk to us about what you're doing and what you think is the right thing to do, because we are interested. And if you agree with us or disagree with us, come and tell us, because, it's a big conversation, and I think it's an important one as creators to have, because you want to do a good job, and part of doing a good job is having that knowledge and being aware of what it is you're choosing to do. Come and find us. Comment down below, or find us on Twitter. I'm Judy Ann Rose and he's John Muck. Let us know what you think, and we will have a conversation with you. And we could do another video if we get a lot of thoughts on it. So yeah, we'll do that. And thank you very much for watching. If you could like this video and subscribe to our channel, you'll help us keep bringing you more writing advice conversations, and we would like to do that. So thank you very much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.